on.
She's not here because Borough President she sits in the chair. She'll be here. She does.
Yeah.
Unless there's something like.
Yeah, I mean, it's good. Exactly. Maybe she's gonna find it. Right, exactly. That's right. That's right. Maybe she would like once in a while, I think get it right. What's that? No. I'm saying this, forget it.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the land use hearing. You read the rules? You read them down. All right, my understanding is the rules were already read. So why don't we just start the hearing? I'm Melinda Katz, I'm the teacher.
Calendar item number 1, DSA number 21796BZ, the applicant Eric Palatnik, PC, effective community board number 7.
Good morning, everyone. Elise Boldare from Eric Palatnik, PC, on behalf of the applicant. Enterprise Rent-A-Car is just seeking a 10-year term to keep everything exactly the same, nothing will be changing. The hours are Monday through Friday, 7:30 a.m. to 6 p.m., Saturday and Sunday, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. And in response to the community board hearing, they're going to make sure that there is no parking on the sidewalks and put lighting in the front.
The lighting on the sensors at the...
Yeah, they want to, because it's on a very commercial street, so they just want to make sure it's safety. And there's a fenced-in parking facility for the cars to park. That's
I think the community board was concerned about overflow parking on the street as well in the residential areas, not just on the sidewalks, right? It's on the residential.
Yeah, oh, so, but it's all fenced in, so behind it is residential, but you can't, it's a giant fence behind it, so the only thing that's in front of it is commercial sidewalk. So I'm not...
So why did the community board say, utilize the residential streets for overflow parking?
I think they meant the side, they don't want anything to be on the sidewalk. That was the...
Has there been cars parked on residential side streets?
The building sits in front of commercial.
We understand that, we got that.
Yeah,
It says right in front of a commercial location. So the question is though, from your knowledge,
yeah.
do they use the residential streets behind it, on the side of it, a mile from
Not,
there?
not to my.
Whatever it is for resident, for the overflow
In
parking.
all our photographs, and we visited, no one was parked on the sidewalk, but we did provide a letter from Enterprise saying they will ensure that there's no parking on the sidewalk. Is that not?
Well,
or on the
the
residential
community board didn't say the sidewalk, they said on
Okay.
the streets in the residential area, so I'm just trying to get
Okay.
a read
So-
from the company whether or not they
So
are doing
we-
that,
Yes.
whether they don't think they're doing that, and maybe it's some other company that we should be looking
Yeah,
at.
they don't think they're doing that. There's no, yeah. They keep all their cars within their fenced-in parking.
Okay, you wanna try?
Okay. Is that,
I appreciate it,
Okay.
I understand. Yeah. We'll follow up with the
Okay.
company as well. Thank you,
Okay.
I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
I hope I
Yeah.
answered
When is this? Okay, great.
Thank you very much.
The item's closed.
Calendar item number 2, DSA number 2017228 DZ, the applicant Fox Rothschild LLC, affecting community board number 7.
Jesse Mazer, how are you?
When I woke up, I was that.
Huh?
When I woke up this morning, that's who I was.
There you go, nice to see you.
I see you. Good morning. We are Land Use Council to the Charles B. Wang Community Health Center. Before you, because it is filed for a variance application at the Board of Standards and Appeals. In a moment, I'll introduce Mr. Shea on behalf of the Community Center, and then after him, Ethan Goodman of our office will take you through the technical findings of the application. This is rather a simple application in a sense. It is asking for 2 minor variations of bulk regulations, and most significantly, a significant reduction in parking. Programmatic needs of the center, which is well known to this office, does not allow us to provide parking at the same time be able to provide the critical health care that the center provides, and that is the essence of the application before you. As you'll hear later on, there is more than sufficient parking immediately across the street that could assuage anyone concerned about impact, but we'll let that develop as this hearing continues. Mr. Shea will now speak on behalf of the center.
Good morning, thank you everyone. My name is Ken Shea. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer at the Charles B. Wang Community Health Center. And I just want to thank you all for giving me the opportunity to come speak here. Just to give everyone who may not be familiar with us a brief history of us, we are a community health center that has been in operation for the last 40 years. We have been in Queens. We opened our first site in 1997, and we've been seeing patients since then. We have opened a second site in Queens in 2015. To give you some brief numbers, in 2016, we saw 52,000 patients for over 244,000 visits. Almost 50% of them were for Queens residents. So we definitely see that there was a really big need for the type of services we provide. We provide primary care, medical, dental, OB/GYN, internal medicine, to all patients regardless of their ability to pay. And what we're hoping for is to develop a new site. It'll be located at 40th Road, at College Point Boulevard, and we will continue to provide these type of services for the community. Just wanted to thank the Borough President of Queens, Lynn Katz, for letting us come and present for this group.
Go ahead.
Hi, Ethan Goodman with Fox Rothschild. I work with Jesse, and we're Land Use Council at the Health Center. Just to take you through some of the technical components of the application in front of the BSA, you'll see here an image of the health center as rendered on its site to orient you as to where we are. We are on 40th Road, right between the southern tower of Skyview Park and the Long Island Railroad right-of-way. We are before the BSA because the site that we own is an extremely long and narrow site with a dog leg and has some unique hardship conditions because of its proximity close to the railroad and its size and shape. The goal here is to provide, as Mr. Shea said, provide 6 areas of health services all under one roof. Something the health center has been struggling with at their current locations in Queens is to provide everything under one roof in sufficient space. So in order to provide internal medicine, family practice, pediatrics, women's health, mental health, and dental care, we need a critical mass and a critical size of floor plates. And so what we're faced with here is a very narrow site and a great difficulty in massing and arranging the parking that would be otherwise required by zoning. We're seeking 3 components of relief here, and I'm going to show you just the image so you can see a fairly good, I can talk to that image. So with regard to height and setback, 2 areas of relief. One is in order to fit the floor plates for the 6 areas of provision, we need a full floor plate basically. Zoning makes us set back at 60 feet. We're seeking to go up to 83 feet before setback. So you see the front wall is a little higher than what zoning would permit. There is no overall height relief we're seeking. We're under the FAA limits. There's no, this district doesn't have an overall height limit. We're just seeking front wall relief to put the 20-foot setback 23 feet higher. In the back, which is technically a side yard, because we're behind the Long Island Railroad, we're seeking to have a 5-foot setback off the railroad. Zoning makes you have either 0 setback or 8 feet setback. We wanted to bridge the gap and put it in the middle, so we'd have as big a floor plate as we could have, yet still be able to maintain our building and have windows in the back for each floor, so we set back 5 feet off the rear yard. And that's a 3 feet, it's either a 5-foot relief or 3-foot relief, depending on which way you look at it. And the third and most significant portion of this is with respect to parking. Let me just go to the parking facility. Yeah. So because of the narrowness of the site, you just can't fit a multi-level parking facility in here. The facility basically would be all ramps and no parking. Zoning requires for this approximately 59,000 square foot development almost 200 parking spaces. Now the BSA does have a standard special permit, which you can cut that in half for an ambulatory care facility, as you're probably aware, and could go down to 100. We can't even fit close to 100 spaces. What we can fit is 1 full floor of parking, 1 level up, and then another entrance, 1 level down. So there are no ramps that go up and down to further levels. That gives us 34 parking spaces for this facility. So one of the first things we did, we hired a traffic consultant and an environmental consultant to review what the parking demand for this facility would be. What's good is we've got a perfect example to use, that is the health center on 37th Avenue. So we did extensive surveys of over 400 people that come to the health center on 37th, both staff and other employees and patients. That basically identified that very few people drive to this facility. There are a number of people who have lower incomes and don't have health insurance, and most of those people don't own cars. And then you also have a number of locals who may have insurance and just have found this to be a very good place to go to get health services. While they may have cars, they live fairly close by, and so they don't tend to drive their cars. So what we did is we did a traffic analysis, and then we grew that traffic to match what we're building here, because the facility's a little bigger. The overall demand for parking in the peak hour during the week, we came up with would be peak at a total of 45 spaces. Right? So a need of 45 spaces. We're building 34 spaces on site. So there's a shortfall, if you will, of about 11 spaces. The next step in the analysis was to basically assess in the vicinity how much parking is available. And what came apparent right away is that directly across the street at Skyview, there are over 1,000 parking spaces available, even in the busiest time of week. So there's ample parking immediately across the street for people to park at for the health center. And so that's the summary of the 3 areas of relief that we're seeking. We believe that this will give us the ability to put all 3 practice areas and substantially relieve the burden that's placed on 37th Avenue, where people have to wait sometimes 5, 6, 7 months to get in and get an appointment, and substantially expand the number of people we'll be able to serve in Queens.
Any other questions? So for a project that we think is really good, you've managed to have a lot of people talking about it, which is never good, right? So a few questions. Clearly, the community board voted 22 to 13 against. So from your perspective, why do you think that is? I mean, I know what they say, I got
Right.
it.
You got it.
Perspective, but from your perspective, what would that be?
So I see it as two primary components. The first component of which is the community board, certainly at the land use committee, which really was sort of driving the dialogue on this. They were a bit miffed because they believed that the mayor early on showed up at the site and announced this as a fait accompli, right, as finished. And that was certainly a miscommunication between between City Hall and the applicant about announcing that. We had never assumed that this did not need review, did not need discretionary review and approvals.
So you know, I was under the same impression.
Understood.
For the record.
Understood. Totally understood.
Originally, we
Right.
were under the impression that this was an as-of-right project.
Yeah. And if there's something we didn't do to make that clear, then that's our bad, right? So we can't go back, so we can only move forward on this. Number one. And number two, they did not seem to have much of an issue with height and setback, with yards, with things like that. It was really about parking. And they had an issue with using some of the 1,000+ spaces that were across the street to park our vehicles. I think they focused more on the zoning requirement for parking than our articulated demand for parking, right? The zoning requirement places it at almost 200, right? Zoning itself understands that that's an extremely high parking ratio for ambulatory care facilities. It's why they put a BSA reduction in initially. And secondly, I think the focus on that, to some extent, didn't focus as much on this particular health center and the fact that very few people do drive to this. And we're not just positing that, we have actually proof of that not very many people drive to this.
From your other two clinics.
From the other two sites in Queens, yeah.
And you don't think the other two sites might be more readily accessible than this site?
They're really not. They're really no closer to transit than this site is.
And what's going to happen to the other two sites?
So the site on 37th Avenue is right now operating well above capacity. Right, they are packed to the gills. So two things have happened. And by the way, that didn't always start occupying the entire building. It grew over the years as their clientele and their demand for services grew. There are very few, if any, health centers in Queens that offer the kind of services without regard to ability to pay. So it's grown and grown and grown over the years. And over the past 5 or so years, the demand for services there has well outstripped supply, as I mentioned, a 6-month wait. So what happens is most people that can afford to wait, if it's just internal medicine, something that's not pressing, yeah, they'll wait and they'll be patient and they'll do it. But waiting 6 months for women's health services, maternity services, that doesn't often work for people. Dental care, mental health, these are things that are just not being provided to people because they don't have the capacity. So a couple things is, one, it will substantially reduce the people that will have to wait for services there. They'll be able to probably operate that in, so the patient rooms there are extremely undersized because they're trying to fit in and squeeze in as many people as they can to reduce waits. They'll be able to make the patient rooms a more normal size, operate a better center, and also expand the number of people they serve. There's a lot of people we're just missing.
So the answer is yes, we're keeping them open.
Everything will be kept open, yes.
So the other two sites will remain
Could
open,
say that
this is just an overflow.
That's right, expanding services.
And I assume you take care of, Charles, the community center will follow the same rules, the Article 28, the whole bit, right?
Everywhere.
So, there's a reason that they cut the requirement for parking in half, right? So to 100, not 34. There's no doubt that the area is relatively crowded. And my understanding is that you're only going to allow employees to park in those 34 spots.
Right, specifically doctors.
But yet you have 9 floors, right? One is sub...
9 floors, 6 floors of service provision, really.
And 2 floors, I don't have the document.
2 floors of parking, 6 service, 1 administrative, essentially.
The first is dental, right? And then it goes up from there.
I don't know. I don't know if we've cited it on each floor, but it's basically parking, 6 floors of service, 1 floor of admin.
And are you, according to these plans, will you be built out to the full FAR?
Yep, built out to the full FAR.
FAR.
Yeah, that's one reason after looking for 7 years, they finally settled on this site, because this site would get us the FAR and not require us to seek bulk relief on floor area. We could fit it in, it's tough to configure it.
And what would be the distinction of services between this site and the other two, any, or is it just which doctors are gonna be where?
No, actually, none of their other sites provide all six of these areas of service provision under one roof. So that's a big goal. That's a big part of the programmatic mission, is when somebody comes in for internal medicine, they can be referred to another floor. It's right there.
And the possibility of adding more parking to the 6 or 7 floors
Right.
that you're putting in?
So it wasn't only a matter of floor area. I think if it was just floor area, we might build more parking levels. But if you look at that, the image that's up before you there, you'll see that two-way ramp. We did an analysis and putting that ramping up to more levels above grade and more levels below grade. Substantial issues below grade, because the railroad's right there and you've got a water table that's like 5 feet below grade, right? So huge cost implications of doing multiple subsurface, but you could go up in theory. Problem is, when you go up with a ramp, you gotta get people up, you gotta get people down. The ramp occupies almost all the spaces and you've got like 2 to 5 spaces per floor. So you physically can't get the spaces in a site that's this shallow. If it were deeper, it could be more sensible, but you just can't fit it, you can't do it.
And so when you did the analysis on your other 2 sites and said most people are taking public transportation, what does that really mean?
Right, so it's not necessarily, well, you're probably right, most people are taking public transportation, more than 50%.
You said that, but I'm just saying,
Right.
so do we know approximately how many people are driving?
Yeah. Yes, they're approximately between, I think it was 25% to 33% are getting there by car. You're supply constrained with parking, so the number of people that park right there are parking right on site. But maybe about 25% are parking vehicles. Some people get there by taxi, by Uber, by things like that. And the majority come by bus or subway.
And do you know how many people you service at those 2 sites? About?
The health center might have a number of how many people it serves.
25,000.
25,000 people,
And
yeah.
so 25% of those 25,000 are driving.
No, I think first of all, it was all people who entered.
So you're talking about visits?
Well, no, I'm saying the parking survey was all people
Oh, sorry.
who entered.
Yeah, you have to
I'm
go up
right.
there, state your name.
Yeah.
We're very formal around here.
Hi, I'm Lynn Sherman. I'm the EVP for Capital Projects for the Health Center. And I did also want to mention that we have 3 sites in Manhattan, none of which have any parking whatsoever.
You like
So-
that in Manhattan?
Right, and so I think, ignorance is not an excuse, but I think some of these issues did arise because we've been operating for 40 years, 5 sites in the city, and it wasn't, that clear to us that this was going to become such a big issue, so I apologize for that. I think we were talking about 25% of the people who come to the health center, including doctors and everyone else, are driving, and many of those people are dropped off by other people. That it's kind of been our service model that people haven't been driving. So I don't know if that answers the
So
question.
25% of, let's say 15,000, whatever, it's still a lot of people coming in. You want this to be your major site, really, right?
This is going to be a mirror.
Service industries are going under the same roof. So,
Right, so
this is what I'm trying to get at.
sure.
Is there any, you said there's ample parking across the street.
Mm-hmm.
What is that site?
It's Skyview Park.
Skyview Park.
Skyview, yep, which has, yep.
There's ample parking. Do we think there's any way we can come to an arrangement with that organization for
Right.
some parking spots so that we can maybe help alleviate some of the 5% of the, 25% of the 25%, 25,000?
That's going to be complicated because of zoning. Skyview, as you well know in general, retail parking, the requirement significantly outstrips the demand. We have many examples, not just in this borough, but throughout the city, of major retail centers that are doing well, but have almost totally empty parking lots. However, from a zoning standpoint, parking is required. So Skyview, even though it's not using the parking, is required to have parking. So therefore, they cannot legally give away that which is required to satisfy that. I don't think we'd have any problem, on an interim basis, that would have to always be interim, to get a commitment that we could park our people there, but as we said, the empirical evidence is there is no time less than 1,000 spaces available during the daytime peak. So it's a sort of zoning catch-22 that we can't, I'm told,
That's a free space.
1,057 on Saturday, as an example, even though it's a large retail facility. According to catch, that there's no question our people can park there, there's no question they allow the public to park there, but we can't get them to legally obligate us.
Is there any other location close, and I'm sure I know this through my staff through osmosis somehow, but is there any other parking location close by that you may have a shuttle that you could utilize for people?
Right, so Skyview certainly as a parking facility makes the most sense because it is directly across the street. There are other facilities, other parking lots that do have capacity during the peak hours that would be enough to satisfy our demand that we've articulated here. It's not 1,000, it's more like, let's see, on Saturdays it's 50 spaces, 71 spaces, 107 spaces, right? These are all within a quarter mile. And so these are parking lots that people can park at. So we think since Skyview is available and they, as long as you pay a fee that you're allowed to park there, people would choose to park at Skyview rather than going to one of these and taking a shuttle across. And there are so many free spaces that we just think any agreement we would reach further beyond Skyview, it just wouldn't be used in reality.
In terms of your current populations at two existing sites, 37th Avenue, 45th Avenue, can you characterize overall how many patients all three locations service?
Yeah, I think we can. Right, once this is built,
I would say,
The total, all of us.
We're streaming live, so if you come to the microphone. Thank you.
So, can you just explain your question to me? How many
Well, right now you-
patients will we serve in Queens after the expansion?
Right now you have a certain number going to each location, and now you have a new location. So what I'm trying to get at is you have a certain number of people going to each, and Mr. Before was characterized as some of the people waiting up to 6 months at 37th Avenue. So I'm trying to get a handle on total, how many clients you would be serving overall, and how much of it would relieve the possible 6-month wait at 37th Avenue and that.
So I think initially it's going to relieve maybe a significant amount of the wait, but I have to say that our experience in Queens is that as we open centers, more people do come. So I think that we expect that there'll be, this is the additional. Right, so I think possibly we would lose through attrition 5,000 to 10,000 maybe, patients at the other site. Because we're saying 39,000 patients at this site.
Alone, a year. And 25,000 together with the other.
25,000 is what we have now.
And so you'll lose 5 to 10, they'll go over there and then you'll make up the other 5
I mean, there's such a, I know you know this, there's such a great need that as soon as we open a site, there's no dental in the area. So I don't want to say to you that we're just going to have fewer and fewer patients. The need is only getting greater.
Well, we understand that.
Yeah, so I don't want to say to you that we intend to continue to operate 37th Avenue and 45th Avenue. They're both needed sites that are very, very busy and full.
While you're here, how many uninsured do you service, do you know?
25% of our patients are uninsured. The vast majority beyond that are Medicaid. We take anybody regardless of their ability to pay. Of course, we have ACA patients.
But 25% are uninsured.
Yeah.
Relieving the burden at the emergency rooms.
Right, and actually, just in this period during the flu, we're open 7 days a week. Our patients are not in the ERs. We work with Flushing Hospital, New York Hospital, Queens. I mean, it's just this period of time we've really seen that our patients, they are vaccinated. We have an incredible flu vaccination rate. I mean, we're just, so I didn't want to say to you that we're going to have fewer patients, because actually once we're out in the community, more and more people come.
Generally speaking, the cooling centers, I think I heard before that some percentage come from Queens. That you have a breakdown on where they come
Communications?
from. Yes.
We do, but.
I think this machine.
Yeah, so for the whole.
No, you need to shut up.
I just.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, sorry, I apologize. Roughly
Can
40,
you identify
oh,
yourself?
sorry, Ken Shea again, Chief Strategy Officer.
Thank you.
Over 46% of our patients reside in Queens. And they go to all our sites, including Manhattan, because the dental's there and not in Queens. But also sometimes they're working or their preferred doctor may be there. But just based on residents, it's almost 50%.
So when you say almost 50%, you mean citywide?
Yes, yes. But the bulk of them, when we look at our primary service area, the bulk of our patients live in the zip codes that are around Flushing.
Right, but our point is that I assume that in your Queens centers, more Queens folks are going.
Yes.
Most of your percentage for Queens is going to be in those centers.
Yes, yes. If you look at Queens, the Queens location specifically, it's a much higher percentage.
Ethan Goodman again. Just to let you know, if you're interested, I know you were trying to sort of crunch the numbers on drivers and percentages and population. In the environmental assessment statement, which your office should have a copy of, part of the application, there's a detailed methodology as to how we did the survey, what we came up with at the current center, and how we translated it into the new center to get that parking demand. So it all emerges from the survey.
And at this new center, they're providing services that also are available at the other centers, but I think the dental is not available at other locations.
That's right. Dental is not available. Other services are, but not at a single center, all in one.
Do you have dental service available in Manhattan?
Manhattan, yes, and the wait is huge.
As soon as we open the schedule, it's full. So we can't even really calculate weight. And it's a hardship for Queens patients to have to travel to Manhattan to get dental services.
And you're doing dental for adults as well as children?
Yes.
And it's not a center,
As far as we know, it's the only.
No, for you.
Oh, for us.
The other sites don't do it at all.
No.
Is there any possibility of looking into some agreement on the parking with, the retail organization across the street, you pay for parking when you go there?
Yeah. If you don't
$3,
shop
you
there.
put the machine in, it's $3.
That's right, or you can
whatever
I
that
believe you
is.
can get validated, but or you can pay.
And according to, I guess it's for Jesse maybe, or I don't know that, but according to the law of zoning, I know that they're required to provide the parking, so are you not allowed supposedly to park in those spots unless you're going to them all?
No, I am allowed.
I know the mall is not supposed to offer it.
No, we're allowed to park here,
You're allowed to park
Yes.
there.
yes. It's not prohibited.
So you could somehow notify your patients that they can park there,
Absolutely.
even though the retail organization can't
Can't
give
legally,
you 50 spots.
it cannot reserve 50 spots for me.
But
That's their
anyone can
problem.
go into those parking lots
Anyone
and
at all.
walk across the street.
Absolutely.
So perhaps we can figure out a way with them that we can advertise that or make that known to the.
We could coordinate that,
to the
correct.
health- to
Yes, we
folks
can
down
do
at
that,
the
Madam
health
President. Thank you.
Thank you very much. For the record, I think as everyone knows, but I think I should probably put it on the record, I do have money in the budget for the center should it be approved by the BSA. And we've made it clear that it's contingent upon the approval by the BSA. But I also know that the organization is very much needed in the community. And so we appreciate the work that you've done in the past and look forward to the future.
We thank you for your support.
Thank you. Seeing no other witness, no other testifier? No? Okay, great. Thank you, the items closed.
Calendar item number 3, BSA number 2017294BB, the applicant Rockridge Inspector LLC, Effective Community Board number 5.
Good morning again, Elise Bolaire. I'm here for Rockridge Inspector for a Blink Gym, which will be at 3611 14th Avenue in the Ridgewood Theater Building, landmark building. It will be on the first floor in the cellar. And there will be sprinklers and sound attenuation to make sure it doesn't cause problems for the apartments above or to the sides, because it's a very multi-residential, commercial boulevard. The cellar will have 3,580 square feet, and the first floor will have 10,558 square feet. And the hours will be from 5:30 a.m. to 11 p.m., Monday through Saturday, and Sunday from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. If you have any questions.
Yeah, the community board conditionally approved it, so you said they're going to be installing soundproofing.
Yes.
Okay, and also, this is a landmark facade for the building,
Yes.
and they also requested that the landlord meet all the requirements standards for maintaining
And the landlord
the
will,
integrity of the landmark.
yes, and,
So the landlord has agreed to that.
yes.
And is this building constructed already?
Yes, it has been constructed, and it got permits in it finished construction, and I think it was approved in 2014.
And it was built with the certificate of appropriateness from the Landmarks Preservation Commission?
Yes. And it has been.
Thank you very much for your testimony. The item is closed.
Thank you for having me.
Next item, calendar item number 4, ESA number 2017299, the applicant Dwayne Morris LLP, Cherokee Community Court, number 11.
Morning. I'm John Popin with the law firm of Dwayne Morris. In November of 2017, we submitted an application on behalf of the Douglas Plaza Shopping Center with the Board of Standards and Appeals to vary certain provisions of Article 5 of the zoning resolution that would allow for the increase in the degree of a non-conforming shopping center by 15,181 square feet. The additional floor area at the subcellar level of the shopping center would eliminate 101 parking spaces of the currently existing 1,556 parking spaces, 1,565 parking spaces, which is also the subject of the application. The application also requests an increase of 1,116 square feet of signage, all of which, if approved, would allow for the installation of a Lowe's Home Improvement Center at the subcellar level of the shopping center. The shopping center is located in an R4 district, although the shopping center was developed before the R4 designation in 1961 December. And thus it is legally non-conforming, but anytime you want to make an alteration or enlargement, do something increasing signage, you have to go to the BSA and get a variance. So before we present the application at the subcellar level, I think it's important to put the shopping center into context and explain the layout, because it's a difficult site. And see if I get this right. Okay. So the shopping center is built on an approximately 560,000 square foot lot, which is irregularly configured along its southern boundary. It's generally bounded by Douglaston Parkway and 61st Avenue to the north. Initially, the shopping center was developed to accommodate a large department store. There's some additional retail in the main shopping center building, but it was really, the principal use was a large department store. Additionally, there are several ancillary retail buildings in the shopping center in the westerly lobe or quadrant of the shopping center. The shopping center is built into a severe slope, both along 61st Avenue and more prominently Douglaston Parkway. And because of the winnowing or narrowing of the lot area, the main shopping center building was forced to be fitted into the steepest sloped area, and as a result, there was a lot of deep cut and fill, and the subcellar level of the main shopping center building is submerged below grade. Because of the irregular configuration of the lot, instead of being able to sort of expand the building because it was confined, the shopping center had to be built over a series of 3 pancake tiers, one on top of each other. The way the shopping center operates or works with respect to layout is at the subcellar level, which is shown here. Access is provided from the lowest elevation along Douglaston Parkway. There's significant parking at the subcellar level, although it's winnowed in front of or lessened directly in front of the subcellar of the main shopping center building. There's an ancillary building at the subcellar level, which is currently occupied by a Fairway. There's also the small retail building that has smaller, more local retail uses. And you can get to the second level of the shopping center from this subcellar level, this first tier, by a ramp that goes up the southern boundary. The second tier of the shopping center comprises of a parking platform, which basically, again, submerges the subcellar level of the main shopping center building, forced into its place because of the configuration, the odd configuration of the lot. Also, the main level of the main shopping center building is on the second tier level, which is accessed from a higher elevation along Douglaston Parkway. And then the top tier of the shopping center, which is accessed from 61st Avenue, is on the roof of the main shopping center building. It's mostly parking with some small amount of retail space. When you look at the whole shopping center from overhead, you can see that the top level is mostly parking with some retail. Then the main shopping center level is the main shopping center building and a parking platform which buries basically much of the subcellar level, including the subcellar level of the main shopping center building. There's also a Fairway that we discussed in the front and a small retail building to the side. So in April of 2017, of course, Macy's vacated the shopping center. Macy's was the department store that occupied all 3 levels, the top level, the main level, and the subcellar level. It terminated, its lease wasn't terminated, it left. And as a result of market conditions and the advent of technology and online shopping, Amazon, everyone knows, it became clear pretty early on that we weren't going to be able to replace the department store in like kind, which created a bit of a conundrum, a challenge for the shopping center, because now it realized that it was going to have to, for the first time, lease out 2 independent levels to independent stores. There's been some interest by some junior anchors to come into the main shopping center level where the Macy's was, but there have been nibbles but no bites yet because each of the junior anchors is waiting for an anchor. There's been, until relatively recently, no interest at all in any retail store going into the sub-cellar level, of course, because it's of its predicament of being darkened, basically, except for Lowe's. So the reason why there's been really very little interest in most retailers coming into the sub-cellar level, this of course is a picture of the sub-cellar level, is because it's affected by the hardships of the site. The steep slope causes it to be below grade and invisible to the neighboring highways and main arteries. It's also submerged, as we've discussed 4 or 5 times, underneath the parking platform that was fitted in to sort of make a shopping center out of it. But this would have been okay if, and it was okay for decades, when the whole site was, or when the whole space was used for a single department store, a single user, because the main shopping center level was identified and was seen from the highways, and so the bottom level didn't need to be identified. But now, unfortunately, this space presents these challenges based on the hardships of the site. I'd also mention at the sub-cellar level, besides the department store space, the other principal use is a 22,000 square foot movie theater. It's a community theater, it's strong in the community, and it's just to the right of the Macy's. We'll talk more about the movie theater as we go along. So the sub-cellar level is not only hardshiped by the topography of the surrounding land area, it's also hardshiped by the fact that it's functionally obsolete within the space for the one sort of class of retail use that's still thriving in the Amazon world of online shopping, and that's warehouse retail. And warehouse retail is like Costco and home improvement centers and Bed Bath & Beyond, and they're typified by large floor-to-floor heights of 22 to 24 feet, which allows them to store all of their merchandise, no more back-of-house storage, all of their merchandise, both sales merchandise and stored merchandise, on large bays that, again, go from floor to ceiling. Typically, you need a 22 to 24 foot clearance. They also have, these spaces also have large spaces in between columns, or wide column spans. And this site, to the contrary, has substandard floor-to-floor heights as a result of the time when it was built. In the building entrance, needing to meet the steep sloped grade, in order to fit the building in, the floor-to-floor heights here, which are about 15 to 18 feet, are substandard even today, even for a non-warehouse retail space. So the only retail store that was interested in coming into the sub-cellar because of the hardships was Lowe's. And Lowe's was willing to take the space and was able to overcome many of the hardships presented by the lack of visibility because they're what's known as a destination retail operator. In other words, they don't depend on impulse buying. They don't need to be seen, to be visited. If you need a hammer, or if you need drywall, or paint, or garden supplies, you're going to come to Lowe's, whether you're a contractor or whether you're someone who lives in the area. So they don't need as much visibility. They do need signage to at least identify that there is a Lowe's in the shopping center, but they don't need the visibility that virtually almost every other type of retail establishment needs. The one hardship that they cannot overcome is the functional obsolescence of the interior of the space because as a warehouse retail center, they need the high floor-to-floor ceilings and the wide column spans, which we don't have here. As a result, instead of being able to stack their merchandise vertically, we've requested a variance for the enlargement of the sub-cellar level by 15,181 square feet to allow them to move their merchandise horizontally, or located horizontally, to compensate for the lack of verticality and the lack of material storage space that would otherwise be placed vertically. So I think if we can, what we'd like to do now is have the shopping center's architect come up and present the outlay, or the layout, excuse me, of the Lowe's itself, where it will be, how it will be situated, and what the areas of variance will be. Yeah, this is just, I'll go forward now.
Larry Rosenblum, Ziskovich Architects. The drawing that's before you right now is the subcellar level, as John described it earlier. It's the lowest level as you're coming in off of Douglaston Parkway. The three areas that are shaded in blue represent the areas that make up the approximate 15,000 square feet of additional area. One area is immediately adjacent to the, which is area A, is the area that's immediately adjacent to what is currently the movie theater. That would be the expanded sales area. The second area, which is B, is a seasonal sales area. And then scattered throughout the rear of the property, which is against the rear gabion wall, is some additional storage areas. They're mostly for recycled materials, items of storage and waste that total about 1,500 square foot throughout the entire property. It's just an in-law. What you're looking at right now is an after shot as it's proposed as compared to the dark area that John was showing earlier. Part of the application includes new lighting, repainting of the facade of the building, and hopefully brightening this up to a point that it's at least as conducive as possible for a shopper shopping at that lower level. The drawings here, the photographs here represent the areas of the addition. So this is a photograph as if I was looking to the side of the existing movie theater. So that's the movie theater side wall located at the subcellar level. This would be the area where their expansion of approximately 8,000 square feet is taking place. That's the expanded sales area. On this view, you're, again, just before you're going underneath the above-grade parking, there would be an additional seasonal sales area, and that's located in the one area that is exposed to the sky above. So it's located in the only area where you can get light and air into that area there. That's the facade of the building. Basically, it would be repainted. The entire facade would be occupied by Lowe's. The area that's shown at the far end is the expanded sales area. John had mentioned also that there would be additional signage application, sign area sought. The areas in red are the areas where the signs would be expanded. The areas in blue, the areas noted in blue are the areas that are already existing signage, and in those cases, the signage is basically changing from Macy's to Lowe's. The areas in red are basically geared towards orientation, towards the elevators, towards the upper levels of parking, and providing the customers overall general guidance on how to use the center itself. And illustrated here is the replacement of, illustrated here is the replacement of the existing Macy's signs with the Lowe's signs, plus the additional signage, most of which is used towards orientation and identification of the fact that they are at the subcellar level.
John Pope and Dwayne Mars. So an independent parking and traffic study was performed in connection with the variance application. With respect to parking, parking counts were made on two different Saturdays, which is peak usage of the shopping center, and it was discerned as the conclusion as a result of both studies was the the cars the cars that would be associated with the Lowe's as it were to come in, and junior anchors as they were to come in, as well as the existing uses, would occupy between 60 and 90% of the available parking spaces of the shopping center, which is within the allowed limits and does not raise an impact. With respect to the traffic study was done in conjunction with meetings with the New York City Department of Transportation. 8 different intersections were identified immediately surrounding the shopping center, and the results were the impacts were negligible to none, with the potential that a signal change of between 1 and 3 seconds may be needed only in morning rush hour time in some but not all of the studied intersections to maintain traffic flow. Finally, the site generally is bounded by residential condominiums to the south, right along the boundary line of the property. We don't feel that the character of the residential presence is jeopardized or hindered as a result of the Lowe's coming in. Lowe's is in many shopping centers in not only New York but across the country. It's the type of need that's useful in a residential area. People will be able to go and again buy their gardening supplies and get their paint to paint their houses, hammer and hardware. It's a large, obviously very big, but a hardware store. Interestingly, it became apparent through the process that the people who, this is the truth, the people who were the most in favor of the Lowe's were those people who lived in the condominiums right on the property line, and in fact they created a coalition and got several dozen petitions in favor of the Lowe's, which we submitted for the record at the community board, and who they also came and spoke in favor at the community board. We note that the community board voted in favor 1812. It was a mixed vote, but it was in favor. Those opposed mostly seemed to be opposed because of the movie theater and the community-based nature of the movie theater, and it had been there for a long time. There's not too much you can really say about that. The movie theater is under a lease. The lease, an agreement has been reached between the movie theater owner and the shopping center owner for a buyout of that lease. It's a business sort of decision to maintain the shopping center because of the, it's becoming, apparent that if the Lowe's doesn't come in, there's so little to no interest in the subcellar level that the shopping center may have, 75 or 80,000 square feet of floor area that would go vacant for a long, long period of time, which could really hinder the ability of the shopping center to continue as a going concern.
Can I intervene?
Yes.
So the movie theater's already been bought out.
Yes.
It's gone now?
No, it's not gone, but an agreement is in place. There's a sunset
When does the
period.
agreement call for them to go?
Do you want to? I have a representative of the ownership. I'm not. Can you come and speak to that? Announce yourself.
Alexander Levine with Ashkenazi Acquisition Corporation. So it's essentially a 30-day notice provision. So on 30 days notice, agreement will be effectuated.
So, the theory that there's nothing else that could go down there, we bought the movie theater out. They weren't leaving anyway, correct? Their lease was 6 years longer, is my understanding?
Approximately, correct. But they make up a small portion of the lower level.
And the lower level now, besides the theaters, is what?
It's vacant.
It's just vacant now, period.
So in that building,
Subcellar.
in the subcellar, former Macy's
Right,
building is
it's all
completely
gone.
vacant.
And we are intending on keeping the cellar level tenants, right, Modell's and Toys R Us?
That's our intention,
That's the intention.
yeah. Market conditions may dictate otherwise, but that is our intention.
And the fairway is also safe.
Correct.
And it's the movie theater that really is causing a lot of trepidation. It doesn't sound like they're gone anyway, it just sounds like they're bought out, you're working on details. They've been given a 30-day notice already?
No, we haven't given them the notice because we don't have all the approvals from the city. But the movie theater is fairly, despite what some of their customers and employees are saying, they're fairly anxious to collect their money.
Any questions?
So the 30-day notice, is that when you get the VSA approval, you give them notice, or when you're ready to start construction?
So in theory, I could give it today. But I think practically speaking, once we have all the entitlements and permits, we would provide that notice.
But the contract in fact has provisions that say you can get out, you can just give them a 30-day notice
At any time.
at any time.
Correct.
So how long have they been there with that provision?
So with that provision, it was when they last extended their lease. If there's 6 years remaining, we lead me to believe it was about 4 years ago. We probably did a 10-year extension. I think that the owner of the movie theater's son got more involved. He might have other aspirations, and I think that he was. It's a substantial sum of money. So.
Out of curiosity, was it reciprocated? Were they allowed to do the 30-day notice also? Just out of curiosity.
No.
Okay. And how many square foot is the entire load?
Approximately 93,000. Yeah. 90 and change.
Plus the variant, plus the 15,000.
That you're adding?
Yeah,
So 105.
more or less. Yes.
Okay. Herman? And my understanding, like you said, is that the Douglaston co-ops that are next door are in favor? They testified in favor?
Yes, correct. Correct.
Douglaston Townhouse Condominiums
Correct.
is the name of the, I guess, the group. They said you were good neighbors. I assume you're taking care of the not a truck route signage? You're working with the city on that? That the community board had requested?
Right, I mean, we agreed to work with the department. I mean, it's up to the Department of Transportation if they're going to put the sign, but those signs up. But we're willing to work with them to see if they will, yes.
Any other questions? I think we got it. No? How many years lease are you going to have with Lowe's?
So it's. I mean, there's confidentiality issues, but
Right,
it is a
but
very
it's-
it is a very long lease.
We don't have to come back here in 5 years.
Certainly not. Certainly not even.
All right, Irving? Thank you. Anybody here to testify? Nope, the item is closed. The next land use committee meeting is...
We have one more item.
Yeah, one more item. I told them.
Calendar item number 5, BSA number 20173052B. The applicant is Carol J. Calando, Becker Community Board number 5.
Oh, no, no.
Good morning, Sandy Anagnostou representing the applicant, and I'm joined by Mr. Gerald Gusick, the operator of the proposed physical culture establishment. This is a special permit application under section 7336 of the zoning resolution before the Board of Standards and Appeals. It's a proposed physical culture establishment in an existing 2-story and mezzanine building on Metropolitan Avenue, which is part of the Metro Mall. The proposed floor area is 27,265 square feet. The mall is, some of the surrounding uses are to the north is a cemetery, east is the Long Island Railroad Metro Avenue station, Long Island Railroad to the south, and some residential area to the west of the site. The zoning district is M1-2. The proposed hours of operation are Monday through Friday, 5 a.m. to 12 a.m., Saturday and Sunday, 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. The physical culture establishment will provide classes, free weights, cardio machines, yoga, Zumba, kickboxing, one-on-one training or in small groups by certified instructors. There are very limited deliveries to the site, typically twice a week. No food, just canned beverages. There is ample parking on the site. Currently, there are 1,875 parking spaces. With the new proposed PCE, 68 spaces would be required, and with the existing retail use, that's 1,543 spaces, which would be a total of 1,611 parking spaces for the entire shopping center, but existing are 1,875. So there's more parking than what's actually required. Plus, this area is well served by mass transit. People also would walk there. There are buses, trains. It's a pretty well served area. Mr. Gusick has worked with senior and schools and provides like youth fitness programs. We also met with Community Board 5, who voted on the application, 27 in favor, 0 opposed, and 1 abstention with no conditions. If there are any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
What was there before?
Conway, the department store, and they moved out. So the building is sprinklered, fire alarm, all the fire safety measures are in place, and there's a rendering there, what it will look like once the work is completed.
Is there any other fitness, what is it, Fitness Fit?
Fit Nation.
Fit Nation, besides this one, or is this your first?
Mr. Gusick actually operates a very successful PCE in Astoria, Queens, Matrix Fitness Center for over a decade, and this would be similar to that, a little larger, maybe a little more affordable rates, which the community was happy about. He'll also provide about 30 jobs looking to hire from the local community.
Earlier you mentioned work with the senior.
He works, you can see.
Is it the other location that you're talking about? That's the
My name's
special-
Gerald Gusick. At our current club, Matrix Fitness Club, we have a senior program. We get seniors in from the community, put them through their exercise programs, get them moving, improve their lives, and then we do the same thing for youth. So we have a youth program that's age 8 till 15.
And you'll be offering that?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's very successful in the community. It's a great service for the community as well.
Are those at maintenance rates?
Although, yes, they are.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, having seen no other people here to testify, the item is closed. This will
Thank you.
close the land use hearing today. The next public hearing will be March 29th, 2018. Thank you, meeting adjourned. Thanks.